Good evening. So some of you saw a picture that I posted to Facebook about some of the ingredients that I was doing, and to let you know what I am cooking, I'm going to be making what they call in Argentina tortilla de acelga, or better known as a Swiss chard frittata. So basically what you're going to need, I'm using rainbow Swiss chard because this is what I could find. It's organic. I'm using 5 eggs. I might put in a 6th egg. I'm not sure yet. We'll see with the quantities. I have shallot and onion chopped fine. Can you see this over here, Sydney? Get up close. Get over it. Put it up over so they can see it a little bit better. There we go. I also have a gypsy pepper that grew in my garden. I thought, what the heck? I'll give it a try, see how it tastes. And I have 2 garlic cloves. And so I've got those chopped up. So right now I have some butter over here that is melting. I'm going to add a little bit of avocado oil to that. I have the pan on low, just a little bit, just so that it coats, so that we're going to cook the vegetables in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add into this my fresh from the garden gypsy pepper, so it's organic, my organic shallot and onions, and my organic garlic. I can't seem to grow the garlic because, like I said before, the chipmunks eat every single garlic clove that I ever put in the ground. I know I should put something around it, or I never do. So they're very fat and happy. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and increase the temperature so that these can start sauteing. I'm going to start sauteing these without any salt or anything at the beginning. Let's get them translucent and soft. So we're going to go ahead and do that for right now. And then over here, I actually like to use the stems and the leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and take off just the very bottom portion. And let me go ahead and try to get these even as much as even as possible. So I'm going to take off the bottom portion. I'm going to get rid of these. And then I'm going to go ahead and I chop them fairly thin. I might get off a little bit of this because it looks a little manky. Okay. So what I do is I chop them as fine as I can, but I like the stems because it gives it texture. And it's very, very flavorful. This is a super green or superfood. And if you're trying to get more vegetables in your diet, go for it. Now, for those of you who are doing the lose it stage, do not use oil or butter. What you can use is chicken broth that has no sugar added to it. Just cook it, saute it in a little bit of chicken broth. Make sure that you have a good nonstick pan, and it'll work just the same. Okay? Now, I'm also going to be putting in nutmeg. I'm going to grate some fresh nutmeg because it's really good with dark greens. I'm going to be using my Hawaiian pink salt and some pepper. And then I'm also going to include 3 different cheeses. I'm going to include a Parmesan Reggiano, just a little bit of Munster, just some little cubes, and a little bit of probably maybe less than 1/4 cup of cheddar. And that is it. So you're going to put the eggs in, the Swiss chard. We're right now sauteing. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you how I like to chop these things up. So I'm going to go ahead and get these kind of like basil. You kind of like roll them all together. And then it makes it easier. See? So I just made a little like a burrito. And you're going to do some fine ribbons. Watch your fingers because I'm good at cutting myself. So you do as fine as you can. And remember, I like the stems. So if you don't like the stems, don't put them in. But I love the stems. I just love the flavor of it. I love the texture of it. And I feel like I'm eating more like meat. So this is kind of a vegetarian, not a vegan, because of course we are using eggs. So this is definitely not vegan. And, you know, if you are on the lose it stage, you can use vegetable broth. You don't have to use... All right, so I'm making the ribbons just a little bit thinner so they're not as big pieces. So now we have our Swiss chard chopped up. So we're going to go ahead and just saute these a little bit more. I'm going to add some salt now to those. So I'm going to go ahead and just maybe a quarter of a teaspoon. That's about it. And a couple of, there we go. And let's go ahead and check for, we want it to be translucent, so they're starting to do their thing. You can get color on them if you'd like. There's no problem with that. I'm actually going to raise the heat up just a tiny bit because I want a little bit of color. So we're going to go ahead and get some color on this. Oh, that smells so good. All right. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to actually put the eggs. I'm going to chop up my eggs now, or not chop them up. I'm going to be putting my eggs. I'm going to be mixing them up really good. Scramble them. As we say in Spanish, batirlos. Now, this is an Argentine dish that I learned. This is why they call it tortilla de acelga, which is the Italian, I guess the Spanish version of a frittata, which is an Italian version of basically an omelet. But it's open-faced. So, what we are doing now is we're just putting the eggs in, and then we're gonna mix them up good. These are organic, pasture-raised. It's better to get organic pasture-raised because that means that the little chickens are happy as can be because they're outside foraging for food, and they're treated humanely, and they're able to run around and get bugs and all kinds of good things to eat. So they're not like your sad ones that are stuck in cages all day. So I'm going to add some salt to this. I'm going to add some pepper to this. And I'm going to add my nutmeg. Now, it's just a little bit. This helps get the bitterness out of the darker greens.
Ooh, that smells good.
Doesn't it smell good? It smells like awesome. It almost smells like Christmas. So I might add just a tiny bit more salt, just because this is what's going to be maybe about half a teaspoon. Oop, it's a little bit more than half a teaspoon. That's a little bit more. There we go. Got half our teaspoon in. So now we're going to mix it up. So we just mix. We're trying to incorporate some air into it. So we have the flavorings in the eggs themselves, so that it goes throughout our tortilla of acelga, which is Swiss chard. Now you guys have two words in Spanish. So acelga, Swiss chard. Now you know some Spanish, people. All right, so let's take a look at our sofrito, what we are toasting up here, getting it nice and translucent. It just needs a little bit more. And we're going to go ahead and pause and be right back. Okay, now we are actually, sorry, I'm going by there because there's a little piece of acelga. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put our Swiss chard. I've used rainbow. You can use one color if you'd like. It's what was in the store when I went. So this is organic. Always go organic, especially on leafy vegetables, because they're one of the dirty dozen. There's a lot more than a dozen. So I'm going to go ahead and cook this up until it is wilted and soft. You can do it at whatever, if you want it al dente, do it al dente. So we're going to go ahead and pause, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, so I'm going to put a little bit of salt on this. Now you see that I'm using Swiss chard, but you can use any vegetable that you like. For those of you that are on the VitaLife program and you're on the Lose It, you can use spinach, you can use cabbage, you can use, zucchini. There's just a bunch of different things. You could use radishes. It'd be really good, especially if they've got kind of like that potato, once you cook them down a bit and they've got that potato texture. That would be good in this as well. And so basically what you're doing is you are cooking these down so they're nice and soft. And if you are not on the Lose It stage, if you're on the Live It stage, if you want to live it up a little bit, I mean, you could use, potatoes, sweet potatoes. I don't do potatoes just because, it just goes right to sugar, so I don't do those. But if you wanted to do that, you could. But for those that are doing the Lose It, you don't put the oil or the butter. You just put a little bit of You can use liquid aminos and some chicken broth and saute everything up until the liquid is almost completely gone. Make sure you have a good non-stick pan because you will be flipping the egg mixture once it is cooked on one side so that you can cook it on the other. Okay? So we are almost to the point of adding our eggs, and we'll be right back. Okay, so basically, as you can see, it has cooked down a lot. So it's not quite al dente, or it's a little bit more of a crunchier side. So I'm just going to add the lid for a little bit and let the steam cook the rest of it for just about a minute or two. Then I'm going to lower the temp, and I'm going to add the egg. And we'll be right back. All right, so we let the steam do its thing. So now it's a lot softer. I'm going to try one of the leaves to see if it's to my liking and one of the stems. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this stem. It's the way I like it. My mom wouldn't like it, but I like it. I'm going to try one of the leaves. Alright, well, since I'm probably the only one that's going to be eating this anyway, because my vegetarian daughter doesn't eat vegetables, I'm going to go ahead and lower the temperature. Now, if you look over here, I have my eggs that have been whipped it good. And then I've got my cheeses. I've got about a quarter cup of cheddar, maybe an eighth of a cup of Parmesan, and what I had left over of Munster cheese. That's why there's a little bit of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the egg first, then put the cheeses in. That way it's on the top, and it'll give it a nice little flavor later. You can mix it in too. It's perfectly fine. I've lowered the temp to low. Now I'm going to take my eggs, make sure I beat them really good. I'm going to put it around. Make sure this all gets incorporated. And now I'm going to add my cheeses. So make sure I get them all around. Try to get it a little bit more around. So there's a little bit of that. And my Parmesan. This is freshly grated Parmesan Reggiano. I love Costco because you can get a lot of things at pretty good prices, so that's why I like them for that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of incorporate the egg as much as I can in with this, so everything gets coated, that the egg gets cooked, and then eventually, once it's ready, it will release naturally from the bottom of the pan when it is ready. And then I'm going to flip it good, and try not to get it all over the kitchen.
It's really just an omelet.
Yes, it is an omelet. It's a fancy way of calling it an omelet. But it's also kind of, if you think of a Mexican tortilla, it's flat like a tortilla. So you can kind of figure out why they say tortilla. That's the way they say it in Argentina, tortilla. All right, so we're going to let that cook for a little bit. And once it's ready to turn, we will be back. All right, so I'm taking a look at, it's pretty much the way it needs to be. So pretty soon I'm going to be able to flip it. So I just want to make sure that everything is released before I flip it.
Back up is going to do a backflip.
It's going to do a somersault. All right, so now we have a pretty good crust on the bottom there. So I'm going to grab a plate. And these plates are a little slippery, so I'm hoping I don't slip everything out the wrong way. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to do it over here because I don't want to do it over the flame. And I'm going to flip it, and then I'm going to transfer it back to my plate. I'm just going to grab the cheese off of there, grab the rest of that, put it back in there. All right, move it off to the side. So now we're going to finish it off, and it will take maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. This, to get it to this point, it took about, I would say, maybe 5 to 7 minutes. I did put the lid on for a little while just to make sure the top got a little bit more cooked. But at this point, you do not need the lid. And I'm actually going to increase the temperature to almost medium. So we're going to increase the temp because everything else has cooked. And you just want to make sure that it's a nice shape. And once it's completed, this is the finished product. We did one earlier because I did a video in Spanish. So this is how it comes out. And I'm going to go ahead and put this on my plate so you can kind of see. And I'm going to test it out because, frankly, I think it's delicious. Oh, so good. So please, give it a try. If you don't like Swiss chard, spinach, whatever kind of greens you like, or any kind of vegetables that you like, give it a try. If you're on the lose it stage, don't put the oil, don't put the butter. Use liquid aminos and a little bit of a broth, whether it be a chicken broth or vegetable broth, as you would like it. Don't put the cheese either. If you're on the live it stage, you can put the cheese, especially the hard cheeses that are aged, into this as well, and it is absolutely delicious. So this is my tortilla de acelga, or my Swiss chard tortilla, or frittata, if you want to call it, and I hope you enjoy it. Bye.